Hi everyone, Marla Miller from marlamiller.com. I had to make sure that we were recording. This is the 8th installment of Show Don't Tell, and in this series I have been working with my editor to revise a manuscript that I wrote 10 years ago, and spent some time revising it last year at an online critique group called critiquecircle.com, which I highly recommend. I'm actually workshopping another novel there right now. But about Sweet Spot. I told you that when I began this process that I would be very honest with you about the process that I'm walking through, and in hopes that it would be helpful to you. I think some of the things that I have demonstrated through my own writing is that sometimes I steal my own thunder. Sometimes my passive voice just keeps those pages laying there on the page. And sometimes I do not tell the story in the kind of order that makes chronological sense. Not that it has to be told in chronological order, but it has to make some sense, and it has to be fluid. And I really didn't appreciate how much of Sweet Spot was not fluid until that was pointed out to me. Here's the value of working with an editor, is that editor reads your manuscript, and you assume that editor reads it more than once and appreciates the entire story. Unlike when you're in a critique group, especially a critique group online, where people are reading parts of the story. You don't always have the same readers there every week or however often that you post chapters. And so while the critiquing of Sweet Spot on critiquecircle.com rendered really good feedback for me, I knew, I had a sense that it wasn't enough. I had pitched a couple chapters to some agents that I know who, were lukewarm on it, and so that's really why I went to find an editor, and so glad that I did. So here's what I'm doing. I am putting the project off to the side for a while, and here's why. I can't get Darlene to tell this story. I just can't get her to speak much about it at all. I have revised the first 10 chapters, and I actually posted, I think, 6 or 7 at critiquecircle.com. Again, the writing is decent enough so that people aren't strained by it. They follow the story. But I just, frankly, don't know what the story is about any longer. And I don't know if it has to do with my distance from it emotionally, because remember, this story, at least for me, began from a real life experience, and that was a divorce of a long-term marriage. It did not at that time include a mother dying. My own mother had died years before that, but it was, a pretty big deal in my life, and kind of got the ball rolling. The consequence of all of it resulted in a novel called Sweet Spot and a divorce from a long-term marriage. So when I wrote that story, I was very much invested in it. When I dug it up from my hard drive, while I knew that my perspective on it had changed, I really thought that I could fill that in with a now and then segment, and I don't really think that works. It even might. I just don't have the energy or the desire to work on it. I've had a couple of discussions with my editor, and one of the things that she said to me that is resonating for me, because I'm writing all kinds of stuff from the side characters. They're screaming in my ear. Louise in particular, who's quite a character in this story. But Darlene is pretty mute, and so I wonder if it's just not in me to continue with this story from Darlene's point of view. I don't know. that could be it. So what my editor said, what Tiffany said to me was, perhaps Mama should tell this story. You guys haven't read any of the passages with Mama as she's dying, but they're pretty evocative, and we like them. And she said, maybe Mama should be the one telling this story. And when she said that, a light bulb went off in my head. So I'm going to think about that for a while. But for now, I'm going to shelve it. And I am very actively editing Deadly Little Secrets, which is a novel that I wrote before Sweet Spot. And it's political, and it's a little edgy. So that's taking up what little time I have to work on editing, because as you know, if you work for a living and you have to pay bills, writing fiction is a luxury. So I just wanted to be very transparent and upfront with you guys about my own process, and this one includes shelving Sweet Spot for a while until I can figure out how to tell this story about a woman who went through a major life crisis and has perspective of that several years later. And until I can tell that story, I really don't want to tell the story about a woman whose long-term marriage breaks up and she, finds a lover and has a fling. It just seems to me to be not a story that I want to put my energy into. So if I can figure out a way to weave in perspective, and it could be through Mama's viewpoint, then I will come back to Sweet Spot. But meanwhile, I've got plenty to do, and for those of you interested in joining me at critiquecircle.com, I encourage you to do so. It's a great place to test the waters for your own writing, and also to get feedback. It also makes you a better critiquer. So that's it for now. Stay tuned, because God only knows that I may have some additions or revisions to Show Don't Tell as time goes on, but right now we're shelving it. Until the next time we chat, be well, keep writing.